Live and in color from the NBC News radio broadcasting studios of KCAA, 1050 AM, 102.3 FM, and 106.5 FM, located in beautiful Southern California, and in parallel from the Turfs Up radio studio in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thanks for tuning in to the Water Zone Show this evening.
Well, a pleasant afternoon, a pleasant evening, or a pleasant morning, depending on where you are in this wonderful world. Hope everybody's doing fine. Welcome to the Water Zone. I'm Rob Starr, along with Mr. Chris Davey, and we will go through another great show today. We have some great guests and stuff. But Mr. Davey, how is things out in Southern California?
We're doing great over here, Rob. It's great to see Chris back this week. She'll come on in just a second here, but missed her last week. I certainly have to tell her that. But as you said, the second half guest, what an awesome subject, right? Don't want to give too much away, but it's going to be great, guys. Stick around for it.
Absolutely. Miss Austin, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. Can't complain today. Not today.
You got a lot of news. Yeah, you got a lot of news out today. Actually, all week.
Oh, yeah, always a lot of news, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
well,
the biggest.
Go ahead.
The biggest thing talking about right now is the Klamath River. They finally removed the last of the 4 dams, and the river is running through the channel. So, now there's a lot of restoration work to be done. We're not done yet. But this is kind of a momentous occasion that the river is now free-flowing off to the sea. And we'll see what happens with the salmon. When they remove the Elwha Dam up in Washington, the salmon came back very fast, like within a year. There's a lot of sediment in the river right now, and that's not necessarily a good thing, but there is a lot of sediment behind the dams, and that's just part of, what's going to happen when you take out a dam. But again, they had sediment up at the Elwha Dam, and they made it through. I mean, it flushes through the system and out down into the ocean, and replenishes the beaches and stuff. I mean, that's how it used to go. The sediment used to wash out of the mountains and into the sea and form that little sand that we all like to have on the beach.
Yeah, and it's not just one. It's just not one type of salmon either, right? Steelhead, coho, chinook, several species of salmon, Chris. So, and then you've got all what this means to the California Native American groups too, right? Because, a big deal for those guys, for those tribes, culturally, food source-wise,
very
and
much
lots of other reasons.
And the tribes have worked very hard for this moment, and it's a big part of their culture. And, we're just starting now to realize what we can do when we partner with tribes, because they really do know so very much about ecology and the landscape, things that have been passed down long before our feet ever touched the United States. If you think about it, the country's only been here, 250 years? But the Native Americans have been here thousands of years. Who knows how long? And they passed so much information down from generation to generation that California is, in a lot of ways, has been working to improve its relationships with tribes and to, bring tribes into land management. There's a lot of public land that's being returned to tribes so that they can manage it, or co-management, where they're working with whatever the park district is, manages that land. They're now working with the tribes to manage that land together. So a lot of good things happening. It's great to see the dams out. There were those folks that did not want to see the dams come out. Those are mostly the local folks that have some economic impacts for those dams coming out. I do hope that some agency somewhere went in and gave them money for that. That's usually how we solve things in the United States. So a lot of those things are economic, and economic impacts can be fixed with a checkbook. So hopefully, hopefully we'll see what this is going to mean. Those dams were just hydropower dams. They weren't water supply dams. They provided a little bit of flood control, but not a whole lot. This is mostly traveling down through fairly remote country. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens with the landscape as time wears on.
It is, but it's important to note that those hydroelectric dams, I know as you were just mentioning, right? Most of them along the Oregon-California border. I mean, that was the reason in the first place why those salmon populations, dropped so drastically. So certainly going to help.
Yeah, well, they didn't have any fish passage, and those dams were built, kind of back before we knew better on a lot of things. So, and they were very old and inefficient dams, and there was a lot of problems in the reservoirs behind the dams with blue-green algae. I mean, now we know all about toxic algae blooms, but, they were having toxic algae blooms on the Klamath River behind these dams, for years before it became so fashionable. So, there's a lot of benefits here. We'll acknowledge that not everybody is happy, and, some of those are the local folks, but the dams are out now, and it will be just fascinating to see how fast the salmon come back.
Yeah, I'll pass it to Rob in just a second. But boy, I just want to make one more note, Chris, that this is 100 years in the making, a century in the making, right? So this river hasn't ran freely for over 100 years. That's incredible to me.
Yes, it's great, and it's going to be really nice to see. Like I say, exciting to see what nature does now.
I heard a rumor about Mr. Davey that he's really excited about this, and that he's going to take a trip up there, and he's going to record the sounds of all the little fishies as they swim by, going, "We're free, we're free, at last we're free."
that recording may be dubbed a little bit, but I've got my hydrophone ready.
Good. Well, what's going on with the site stuff? I hear that's moving along. I mean, I was at a symposium a couple of weeks ago with Secretary Crowfoot and J.B. Robinette, who's the head engineering guy for the project, and they're excited. They're doing everything they can to push it through and keep it going.
Yes, the Sykes Reservoir is currently having undergoing some hearings at the State Water Board for their water right, for to get the water right to put the water into the reservoir, because Sykes Reservoir is what we call an off-stream reservoir, so it's not blocking a river. There's no natural inflow into the reservoir, so they're going to be pumping water up into it from the Sacramento River. So they are applying for some water rights, and the hearing just opened up. It continues. Actually, I think the last day was today for this phase of the hearing, and then it's going to pick up a month or two down the road. I don't exactly remember when. This is a bit of a long, drawn-out water right process that we have here in California. A lot of it relates to making sure that if they grant them this water right, it's not going to impact other water right holders. So there's a lot of people file protests, and they have to kind of wade through all of these people that do have legitimate concerns. If you're downstream of wherever they're going to be taking the water from, and you have a water right, you're going to be very interested and very cognizant of what they're doing, and you want to protect your rights. So this is all kind of normal and very deliberative. Nothing really moves too fast at the State Water Board. And so this process will be ongoing. Again, the hearings pick up in a couple months, and I think pretty much after they conclude the water right hearing, they are almost through the permitting process. Not completely. I'm sure I'm thinking there's still at least one more permit I can think of that they likely have to have. But they are accomplishing getting the permits they need to move forward on the project. So we will see a lot of eyes on this project.
Well, it's been going on for a while, but it seems like it's a good project, and people really want it. So, yes, there's always going to be opposition to it. But I know when we have Secretary Crowfoot come on, he's going to talk about some of the things that they're dealing with these people. And like you said, a checkbook helps. Yeah.
Well, with Sites Reservoir, the environmentalists are concerned about water flows from taking more water from the river and the impacts that will have, and they don't think there's going to be much water to store, so they sort of dispute some of the water analysis. So all of that is kind of what's going to have to be worked through with this process at the State Water Board to address all those concerns. But I think, I never take a position on anything, so this is not taking a position, even if it sounds like it is. But I think that this project is probably as low impact as you can get for a water storage project, given that it's off stream and all that. And there's people willing to pay for that. So, that's the other big thing that we argue about is who's going to pay for this. And so there are people willing to pay for this reservoir. And with the proposition, this was a ballot proposition that funded this program, and there's a requirement that there's water that comes out of this for the ecosystem. So I have to think this is about as low impact of a water storage project that you could have. And it seems to be the kind of project that the scientists are saying that we need going forward, the kind of project that can pick up flows in the river that are falling in California below our major dams that we have up in the mountains, because they're there to mainly collect snow melt. So when it rains below the reservoirs, there's a lot of water running through our rivers, and that is the place where we need to be capturing water. So, I think it's as low impact of a project as a water storage project could be, but that's not taking a position.
Yeah, that is true.
Not giving any credence. Sorry, Rob, I didn't hear you speak up there. Go ahead, buddy.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so Chris, not giving any credence to whether that's an opinion or not. It's a great assessment, and we've talked about Sites Reservoir so many times on the show. Had people on the show discussing it. So how you expressed it just there, is just absolutely great, and I think it's fair and level. So I just want to let you know that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So then we have our other controversial project that we talk about all the time, the Delta Tunnel.
Yeah.
And that's coming up, but
Yep.
Nothing moving on that right now. Nothing to add today.
No.
Well,
What about this?
go ahead, Rob.
I
know you had a question.
Oh, no. I was going to ask another subject. Interests me is the story you did about the blue carbon.
Oh.
Like surprise you? No, I just thought that was I just thought that was an interesting article you had in there about blue carbon. But 2% of the ocean carries the most of this carbon, and we're having people on the show in the next couple of weeks to talk about decarbonizing the water in the ocean. So it's going to be really interesting to that.
Yeah, I have to say that was one of my last minute ads. and I stuffed it in there and went on my way.
Okay, no problem.
It's dated less than an hour ago. Yeah. I have.
Well,
I'll tell you, Rob. What? And it's always the headline. It's always the tagline that grabs me, Chris, on Maven's notebook. But this one grabbed me for sure. Quote: "When a summer drought begins in winter," right? Talking about the Department of Energy's. Yeah, the Department of Energy's report or article that just came out about the Colorado River watershed and how they're starting to see the effects already for next summer.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. What this people might be wondering, what is the Department of Energy looking into like snow for? But part of it is for hydropower and forecasting, and that's actually what this story sort of digs into is all the nuances that there are to measuring snowpack and within snowpack itself. And we're always, through the years, we haven't been able to be very sophisticated about how we measure snowpack. You like if you looked up at the Sierras and you want to know how much snow is up there, it really depends on what point that you look at. And so how are you going to measure that? And that's always been an issue for water supply. It's also an issue for hydropower that are also trying to plan what their output's going to be. So there's a lot of work that's going into how they can measure all these different factors. I mean, sometimes snow is really wet, sometimes it's very dry. 1 foot of snow here, there, not the same as 1 foot somewhere else. So there's just all these different things. So, and they've been doing this measurement experiment up in the upper Colorado River Basin, where they're measured it in all sorts of different ways, different factors. And so they're hoping to use this to improve the model's ability to forecast how much water is really up there, which is very important because it's going to affect, how much water there is in the rivers and streams for us to live on during the summer months.
Well, right, it's going to get drier and drier. It's going to get drier and drier for the next century, is what I hear.
Well, there's that, but then also these atmospheric river storms that come in are generally coming from the tropics, so they're generally very warm. So they don't put much snow up in the mountains. They dump just a lot of water on the valley floor. They can, bring snow, but they tend to be the warmer storms. The snow storms come down from the north, from Alaska kind of areas. So, so there's just a lot of changes going on in trying to figure out how all of this is going to impact things is really important. And models are so important these days. Everything is done with a model, all the forecasting and stuff. A lot of planning goes into a lot of the stuff that the government does, and, models are important.
Sure. I've never asked you this question, but I was just thinking about it. What do you consider the scariest thing about water in the future?
I think it's maybe shortage, I guess. I think, I worry that we're going to, like the 1 year when we only had, we had so little snow in the mountains, I worry that we get a string of those in a row. I mean, there's 1 year it was really bad. Jerry Brown went up to the field and they, news from the Sierra, this dry field that's supposed to be under feet of snow. So I think that's my worry, I guess.
Chris, I'm going to give you a plug because on your website you've always had that bar up there. It says, "Where does California water come from?" I've referenced it several times. So for our listeners, right, if you really want to get a good view into California's, well, actually it's national water because there's a bunch of data on there. There's a ton of charts and stuff on there, especially that variable climate chart that's on there, Chris, that shows, I believe, I don't have it up in front of me, but I believe it's 120 plus years worth, right, back to the late 1890s.
Shows
up until
why
today.
Everything's so nutty here in California. Yeah, I just updated those pages too, all of my explainer pages, and I'm about done with the Delta Conveyance Project explainer. So there's an explainer category on the menu bar. You can pull that down, and there are all sorts of things in there now, all freshly updated.
Yeah, it's great stuff, for sure.
Do you think, both of you, that water now is one of the top local issues of the United States and other places? I mean, yes, we talk about the economy and the border and all that kind of stuff, but do you think it's elevated enough that people now really understand the definite need for water and energy? I mean, it's like, I see everybody's trying to balance the need for water and energy with the needs of the planet, where we have to understand both water and energy to optimize its lifetime performance. And I think water agencies has done a good job, but do you think the press or the media has done enough to elevate this to the next level where people really are concerned about this? Or they just turn on their tap and watch the water flow?
Well, I think it's really hard for me to answer that because California's water issues are just more wacky than the rest of the nation. So we have way more to be concerned about. The chart that Chris Davey was talking about is one that shows the variation of precipitation each year, and for most of the country it varies maybe 2 to 3 inches per year, but every winter there's snow, and and actually also in other parts of the country it rains during the summer. It does not rain during the summer out here in California. So what California as itself deals with, the bottom line of that graphic is that California has more floods and more droughts than any other state in the union, and we can get those, sometimes even in the same year. And it is because our climate is so very highly variable. So I think that there is some more concern in California, and more people are aware of it, but it's hard for me to weigh in on the other parts of the country. And their issues are more water quality issues, like lead in the
Right.
drinking water systems and stuff. We have that, but then we also have this highly variable climate. So it's kind of different. I think tap water is an important topic, though, and I do think that there's money now to replace lead in the water lines in areas that have it. So there is some action going for that type of infrastructure elsewhere.
Good thoughts. I always wanted to ask that question of you guys, so I appreciate that. Well, Chris, we're coming up to our commercial break, and we want to thank you again for all you do. And as you said, you just finished writing that other article. So I guess I was right. You type 24 hours a day. It's amazing all the amount of stuff that you put out in each day. I can understand if it was a week thing, but you do it every day, and that's amazing. So listeners, please go to mavensnotebook.com, become a subscriber. It's a great way to get your day going with all the water news that you can think about. And you can also become a sponsor of that, and that would be greatly appreciated. And we certainly love Miss Austin, and she does a great job. And you got a great following. I mean, we get a lot of comments from our listeners and people I meet that they listen, they hear you in symposiums, and they read about your Maven's Notebook, and it's just a great thing that you do, and we appreciate it very much from the Water Zone.
All right, sounds great. Good evening, everyone.
Have a great week, Chris.
Yep, we'll talk to you next week. All right, we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with our featured guest, so stick around. It's going to be a great conversation, some interesting technology that you want to hear about. So we'll be right back.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda, sponsored by Teamsters Local 1932, protecting the future of working families. Teamsters1932.org.
Drainage is a valuable addition to most any landscaping project, and the most common stormwater problems are easy to identify when you know what to look for. Before we begin, a few quick notes. In each of the cases you're about to see, the installation of a drainage solution will likely take only a few hours, but can vary depending on the products used, the length of the pipe runs, depth, soil type, and other factors. Also, call before you dig. Do not break ground until all buried utilities have been clearly marked. First up, downspout runoff. This is the cause of many of the most notorious drainage problems, and the symptoms are plain to see, ranging from washed-out landscape beds to serious foundation problems like wet crawl spaces and even flooded basements. Compared to the price of repairing these issues if left untreated long-term, the drainage products to solve them now are very cost-effective. For areas where no trees overhang the roof or there are leaf guards, downspout adapters are ideal for connecting gutters to drainage pipe. Where trees overhang, use catch basins or low-profile adapters with grates and basin filters to help block debris and collect discharge. These should all move water away from the foundation to a safe area downstream. Pro tip, the average home has at least 2 downspouts, 4 if the garage is attached. Next, let's look at problems from water collecting in low areas. This can cause soil saturation and, in more severe cases, ponding. In times of prolonged rainfall, these areas become muddy and unusable, and a breeding ground for mosquitoes. Product solutions for water and lawn problems include grates to block large debris from entering the drainage piping, and catch basins with sumps allowing smaller debris to settle for removal during maintenance. Both solutions should be connected to a drainage pipe to move water away from the problem area to a safe discharge location. For situations when water can't be discharged to another location, the NDS Flowwell Engineered Dry Well allows for detention and infiltration of collected runoff. Rather than a barrier, view problems like this as an upsell opportunity. Here's another hint. Call your customers shortly after rainfall when these problems will already be top of mind and a priority to fix. Another common drainage problem is flooded or oversaturated landscape beds in natural areas. Just like lawns, beds that remain flooded for extended periods of time can encourage mosquito breeding. Ornamental plants often become stressed, are more susceptible to disease, and can even perish. Additionally, flooded landscape beds adjacent to a structure can contribute to foundation problems. Using domed atrium grates as a pipe inlet, or with a catch basin or low-profile adapter, will help solve this problem. Atrium grates are most suited for landscape beds in natural areas as they drain runoff flows containing mulch and other debris better than flat grates. NDS filters in a catch basin provide additional protection for the drainage system by preventing smaller debris from entering the downstream piping. The grates, basins, or low-profile adapters connect to a drainage pipe to move water away to a safe area. Pop-up emitters are a good choice at the point of discharge. Keep an eye out for symptoms of these common drainage problems on your next site visit. Once you've identified the problem and the possible solution, it's time to connect with Site 1 and NDS. With their resources and support, you can add drainage to your services and get the job done right.
All right, welcome back to the second half of the Water Zone. Hope everybody's having a great day. We have a great guest coming on who's going to give some interesting information about some technology they developed, and I'm excited to hear more about it. So it's Chris. I'd like to introduce a gentleman named Marty Weems, and he serves as the Managing Director of Americas for a company called Desert Control. And his background, he has an MBA and a master's degree, science degree, from the University of Tennessee, and he's here to talk about what's this acronym called LNC. So, Marty, welcome to the Water Zone.
Chris as well.
All right, we hear you now. Can you hear us? Marty?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Yeah, we got you now. You're in. So give us a little background information on the company and how it started and so forth and so on.
Yeah, great. So Desert Control is actually a Norwegian company. For Desert Control Americas, we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Desert Control AS, which is a small publicly traded company out of Norway. The founder, the gentleman who discovered or invented the product, is a Norwegian oil and gas engineer, and quite literally figured this out in his garage. So just a really neat backstory on the history of how it came to be. And then, we were fortunate that he was able to connect with some business types in Norway that brought to bear the resources to begin to commercialize it and prove it, and that led to work in the Middle East and now here in the States.
Well, just real quick to that is background on you. How'd you get into this industry? Where'd you come from? And what intrigued you about it?
Yeah, so I grew up 10th generation farmer in eastern Tennessee, in the foothills of southern Appalachia, where it's 40 to 60 inches of rain a year. So grew up with blisters, cow manure, and dirt under my fingernails most days. So but went on to college, worked in technology, worked in some different fields over time, a few startups. Had a couple of positive exits there, and had worked in the natural resources field. And all that road had brought me out here to Arizona about 16, 17 years ago now, where we say whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting over. And, a couple of years ago was approached by the folks from Desert Control. They were looking for someone to help them commercialize this particular technology in the Southwest and in the Americas eventually. At first I was, hey, that's nice, but, I think I'm pretty happy where I'm at, but I'm really intrigued by the technology. Let me learn more about the technology. So the conversation continued and fairly quickly found myself thinking, well, maybe these guys really have something here, because this is really interesting, and there's certainly no shortage of challenges around water conservation, soil conservation, and improving water and nutrient efficiency. So, I saw a product that was a neat technology that really needed help getting scaled, getting validated in the market, and finding proper product market fit. And those are things where I can certainly help out. And it's been a great couple of years here doing exactly those things.
Great. Well, we'll let Chris jump in here. I know he's got some questions. Go ahead, Chris.
I do indeed. Thanks, Rob. Marty, welcome to the Water Zone. I hope you're doing well today. Yep, good. It's a confirmation there. Marty, listen, I got a couple of questions for you, because I want to learn so much about the LNC product, right? The Liquid National Clay, and that technology, just in the way it sets. But I tell you, I've got several people on the chat board here kind of asking a little bit about, they've obviously gone on your website and taken a look, and I've gotten 2 or 3 comments about your tagline that says, "Making Earth Green Again," right? So that kind of copies the MAGA thing. But how did that come about? I mean, I'm tripping a hair right off of what our listeners are saying right now.
So a great comment and it's an interesting topic from my perspective. So, the topic here is going to green, and we're currently the Earth is not making any more high quality soil to an extent, not at the pace that we're losing.
You're breaking. Sorry, Marty. You're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit.
Let me change my. Let me change my audio, see if it helps.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me any better now?
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, we'll go this way. So, desertification can accelerate around the globe, and in places where, farming is challenging, it's arid climates, water. And the soils are arid and very sandy. Water holding capacity is really difficult, and to reverse that, quite often what those soils need is more water holding capacity, greater field capacity, which primarily comes from being able to incorporate clay. But that's always been logistically, just not a viable solution. And the great thing about liquid natural clay is that we believe we're bringing to scale a viable solution to arid soils that are just too sandy to be as green as we would like them to be, and to help reverse desertification across the globe.
Well, maybe we can look at another question another way, Marty, asking if you can define, if you will, the urgency here, because I know you mentioned just a little bit at the beginning that this is an urgent problem, right? This soil health and the desertification or erosion, soil degradation, and stuff like that. So can you kind of, before we talk about LNC and what it does, can you kind of define a little bit more why this is such an urgent issue?
Yeah, so from my perspective, there's two things that make it urgent. One, as humans, we're pretty good at making more humans. So the population continues to grow. That means we've got more mouths to feed. And while technology and fertilizers and irrigation systems have, brought us to an extraordinary point in human history of being able to produce food for 7 billion people, it's the next billion and the next billion after that are, really going to put a lot of strain on us globally. So we need land to be able to produce that food. There's not much of a alternative to arable land that is available in the acreage and the capability that it's going to take to do that. One of the things that humans are good at in a bad way is that we're really good at finding really great farmland. It's near fantastic water, and everybody wants to live there, so we build houses all over it. So in one direction, we all know we keep losing farmland, great farmland, to housing, and just people want a place to live. Hey, that's just part of it. I got a house, you got a house, we all want a place to live. So that's what I call we're global force of desertification.
Yeah. We were losing you.
So we've got massive desertification that is, we're losing arable land from the outside edges. That marginal land becomes unviable over time. So between humans building houses and development, plus desertification, we're losing arable land at just an extraordinary pace, and it's not slowing down; it's only speeding up.
Yeah, well, let's talk about what the solution is then in the product for desert control, LNC, or liquid natural clay, and kind of give our listeners some idea about what it is, and then we'll talk about some of the opportunities that that are around that. So can you kind of give us the view of what LNC is, how it works, how it's applied, how that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and I certainly don't want to overstep our realities here.
Sure.
I don't know that there's any one solution to this massive problem that we're talking about here, but we do think we can be a part of the solution. There are a lot of, be it great farming practices, turf management practices, those kind of things that can help conserve water, conserve soil. Big fan of regenerative farming, big fan of precision irrigation, precision farming. These are all tools that certainly need to continue to be grown and advanced. We think we can be complementary to those, all of these other technologies in a great way, especially in very sandy, arid soils. So when, if you think about the soil triangle, you think about soil texture, we're primarily focused on soils that are very high in sand content. So it'll be sand, sandy loam, loamy sand. Those are all really great target soil profiles for us in the product Liquid Natural Clay. And it's really quite simple what it does. We're taking our mineral input, which is mainly clay, all natural, organic certified. We exfoliate that to maximize surface area. That surface area is a negative charge surface area that has water holding capacity that's 10x its own mass. So, and then we percolate that with the available irrigation water into the soil profile. So the net result is you still have sandy soil that is, easy to till. It's great for growing a variety of different crops, but now we've increased its field capacity and its water holding capacity. So the variety of different crops that you could then grow in that improved soil has broadened quite a bit. Typically, sandy soils, if they can be farmed, you're only going to be able to farm, forage, alfalfa, dates, citrus. You're really limited in what you can do with a sandy soil as opposed to a loamy soil. And a lot of that has to do with field capacity, water holding capacity. It's just sandy soils they're too porous. They won't hold nutrient. They have limited water holding capacity. That's the primary thing we're changing. So as we improve water holding capacity, we find soil moisture stays much more consistent, as opposed to getting really wet for an irrigation event and then getting too dry in between irrigation events. Soil temperature stays more consistent between irrigation events, and we're increasing CEC values because we're adding all of that additional negative charge surface area that comes with the mineral content.
So when you do that at a facility or site where you prepare all of this, does it get bagged and delivered to some properties, or how does that work? And then the second follow-up question I have for that is, I know we have people on from potting soil companies and stuff like that, and they were talking, and I went out and visited a couple of the places to see how they did that. And so they package it, they send it out to the big box stores like what do you call it, Lowe's or Home Depot, such. And sometimes when they come on pallets, they lay outside for a long time. Does that spoil the soil? Does it kill the minerals or the living soil that's in those bags? And does that play any part on what your stuff does? How do you get it to where you make this thing and then bring it to a farm or a golf course? How does that work?
Yeah, excellent question. And this is kind of a unique piece of our delivery. So, think of it like I'm really going to oversimplify this, but essentially, our technology is based on a substantial piece of machinery that's towable on a simple 20-foot trailer. That we tow with a 1-ton pickup truck, typical heavy-duty pickup truck. Small crew, pickup truck and a trailer, shows up at site, and then we have the dry mineral material delivered to the site separately. And then we make the product on site, whether that's at the golf course or
You dropped out after the word "or." I'm sorry, we're having communication problems with you. I don't know if you're mobile or you try a different spot. Are you there? Chris, do you hear him?
I can hear you, Rob, but not Marty, unfortunately. I still...
Marty, if you can hear us, just dial back into the number. It's pretty interesting. I'm glad he was describing that, because I couldn't comprehend how this was put together. Did it in a facility, then they hauled it over, or they make it on the property. I guess they make it on the property after they deliver some of the stuff.
I think we got him back, Rob.
Can you go ahead, Marty? You cut out after the word "or" as you was just trying to describe that.
Yeah. So the mineral deliver content to the farm or the golf course, and then we a small crew comes in, a tray that, and we mix the mineral content and the water together on site, and then we deliver it the same system, irrigation system that's on site. So the farm irrigation system or golf course irrigation system, we're going to deliver it just like they do the water. The product as it goes on is 98-99% water away, and it'll be so anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half pH, and as that water percolating into the soil, in the mineral content deeper in.
You're still breaking up pretty bad. We catch every other word. Sorry about it, because this is really interesting, and I know I'm getting stuff on the boards that people really want to hear, but it's just going. It's like you're talking and go like that. Sorry, listeners. We're just having some communication problems.
Do we have any more ready now, gentlemen? You're
still breaking up.
Yeah. I'm not sure what else to do, gentlemen.
Yeah, let me see if I can ask a question, Marty, and then hopefully the connection will be good enough to do it, because you've mentioned a couple of times ag, and then you've mentioned golf, and I'm probably thinking that this is applicable to managed turf as well, like parks, HOAs, and all that sort of stuff. So it's essentially an additive, if you will, and it's delivered through the existing irrigation system, and it helps to keep water in the root zone and maintain a longer endurance soil water holding capacity, right? So is that kind of like the best roundup for it, Marty?
Yeah. You've explained it quite well. It's an all natural, organic, certified mineral product. So you're exactly on target with everything you said there.
So if that's the case, then I mean it's not just kind of like I think as you described it earlier, right? Farming in the desert, right? I mean, and I know it's the type of soil that we're talking about, but it can be not just for ag, right? But other applications. I just want to make sure I'm right on that for our listeners.
Yeah, that's correct. We've at this point we've mainly focused our commercial activities in golf, turf, landscape applications, and arid soil farming operations in the Southwest, in the American Southwest. Also in the Middle East, so like UAE, Saudi Arabia.
What makes it different from like a surfactant or other wetting agents? Kind of, can you explain what the differentiator is?
Yeah, so surfactants, wetting agents are, they're primarily going to be a synthetic input, and they also have short-term viability. You got to reapply those over and over, and if you're not consistent with reapplication, then you got to start over with your much heavier starting dose if you don't keep your timing right.
Right.
And so you've got a lot of labor and equipment that you're using over and over again, over the course of, year or years. Whereas, we're using it's 100 million year old clay. So it's been doing clay things for 100 million years. It's probably going to keep doing it long after we're gone. So longevity is a big plus here. So you're going to, so some of those same benefits that you would expect from a surfactant or wetting agent, you're going to get some of a fair amount of that, but we're doing a long-term soil improvement as opposed to a short-term chemical additive. Wetting agents, surfactants, not all of them are all about improving water holding capacity and water conservation. Some of them are for different purposes. I'm specifically talking about using the tool comparison of improving water holding capacity and water conservation in these soil profiles.
Yeah, we thought it when Rob and I first learned about this. I mean, we were really intrigued, right? It's got to be, when you talk about a product that reduces water consumption, increases yields. I mean, that's the definition of a win-win right there, Marty, for sure, right? And then when you look at other benefits, I mean, it's a completely different approach. You hear lots of people talking about smart irrigation and controllers and all that to manage. This is another way to approach that, and it's got to have other benefits for energy and water costs and energy costs and compliance to water restrictions, and a big boon for stewardship. Do you agree?
Yeah, you're right on target there. So, with some of the folks we're working with, they may have plenty of water, but they're in a very remote location. They don't have power access, so they're having to pump their water with some diesel generators. So their cost per kilowatt to pump that water can be really expensive. It's not that the water costs them a lot of money; it's that the energy to move that water costs a lot of money. And both of those things are true. If you look at a golf course in San Diego as an example, they might use 2 or 3 acre-feet of water per acre of turf. Not only is the water expensive, but the electricity to pump that water is incredibly expensive for them. And so there's say compared to maybe using a surfactant for water conservation or wetting agent, this LNC as a tool is going to, it's a long-term input, so you're not talking about an operating expense. You're talking about a capital investment expense that can then be capitalized on the balance sheet because you're making a long-term land improvement for soil and water conservation, not a short-term operating expense of a chemical input that only lasts a few weeks. And less labor, less use of your equipment, and you're getting that long-term water holding capacity improvement for that soil.
Well, that's a smart way to do it, and I wish we didn't have a communication problem with the breakup. You sound perfect now, but I know for our listening audience, where can they get a hold of you or your company? Where can they find out more information? Yeah,
so our easiest place to get in touch with us is through our website, desertcontrol.com, and we'd love to hear from anyone relative to questions or interest. We're primarily operating in the Southwest right now, so from up above Fresno, California, down into southern Arizona here as well.
Great. Well, we'd like to have you back and talk more because I'm really interested in this. But we got to turn it over to NBC for the news hour. So, Marty, thank you very much for being on the Water Zone. We'll get back to you shortly.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
NBC News on KCAA Loma Linda.